Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to ITHive.org's live tech show, episode 37. If you have any questions or comments or anything you want to talk about, bring that up, and we'll get that back to that. So there's a few things this week, a couple of security issues. There's an issue with Flash, like there's always been. But even more so, there's something that I've realized now, and I'll be doing it for my customers, and I'll talk about that. Your Android phone might not be secure, so that's an issue. And there's a problem with zip files, and I wanted to touch on a little bit on this on Antivirus Software and how that works and how it can work better. What else do we have here? I think that's about it. I guess the last thing would be to talk about when you're a customer, right, and you're dealing with an IT company, how you can make that work better for yourself, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be ITHive.org, but any company. Okay, and things you need to understand, and things that you should keep in mind when doing that. So we'll talk about that stuff. Okay, so I'm not sure what I mentioned first. But, oh yeah, well, I guess Windows, right? So Windows updates. So the spring update now I'm seeing hitting my customers. So I'm not sure if Microsoft did a release in the United States first, and now they're rolling out this release a little bit more. So there is a big update on the way, folks, and it is starting to roll out. I have heard, oddly enough, and I haven't quite figured this out, the big update prior to this one, the fall update, I saw a lot of customers with problems. This spring update, I don't know if Microsoft held back on that because there were initial problems and now they're rolling it out. But I have yet to see issues in my customer base problems with this update. It's going through. It takes a little bit of time to apply to the machine, depending on the speed and quality of your hardware. You might want to leave it a bit of time to apply that, but I've had a few machines personally get updated. I've had some clients get the update, and so far, so good. No issues. So, 2 thumbs up, Microsoft, if you're actually fixed the problem now. That's good, and let's hope for smooth rollouts moving forward. So, other things here. Flash. So, Flash has been an issue. Adobe Flash has been an issue for a long time. A security problem. And yet there is another vulnerability with that. Well, one thing that, we all have, especially if you have an older machine, we all likely have Flash sitting on your computer. And for the most part, you likely don't need it. And if you're going to a website that needs Flash, maybe you shouldn't be on that website to begin with, because it's probably really old, out of date, might be full of things that you don't want to be exposed to. So our recommendation, and we're moving forward this with our customer base, is to look for Flash and remove it. So if you know how to do that, you go to your app settings, look for Flash, uninstall it. Okay. It's safer that way and better that way. Okay. Because you shouldn't be using it anyway. So that's the thing with Flash. What do we got next? Would be zip files. Well, okay, I didn't mention this in the title, but there is another thing with your Android phone. Apparently, some Android phones have backdoor access through port 5555, and it's open. That would leave a hacker the ability to get in through that back door and take over your phone. So that can be a problem. I'm not sure what the solution is, because I didn't hear that. So that's maybe something that we need to follow up on another episode. I know how to test for the problem, but what the solution is, I don't know, not yet. Because of course, you can block it by security devices on the network and stuff, and protect your phone that way. But when you're out running around on, you could be vulnerable. So it's something to be aware of. Now, of course, I'm always an advocate, and some don't agree, unfortunately, but I think having secondary security software on any device that's communicated to the internet is a good thing. If you don't know something's going on, then you're going to have problems. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, okay? Because that is also another subject. Zip files. Very, very interesting thing with zip files. And apparently, this ability has existed in compressed files for a long time. And it's not just zip, it's all kinds of software compression software that all allow the same thing. Well, here's the issue. When you uncompress something, okay, the uncompress process has to be done with a program. Well, that process can allow, I'm trying to explain this in good terms, but it can allow the background process to travel in your directory structure and actually access or make changes to things that it shouldn't. So again, I don't know the solution for this yet, but it's an issue. So be very careful uncompressing files from sources that you're not confident about. So that this could be a bigger problem later. Again, it's something to be concerned with. So my last thing now is to talk about security. Well, it's not my last thing, second last thing. Talk about security because I've always been an advocate, whether you have an Android phone or an iPhone or a Mac OS device or anything from Apple or Windows, anything, right? If it's connected to the internet, you should have security software on it, independent from the operating system. So why do I feel that way? Well, because the thing with security is that if you don't know, right, or if you're relying on, whether it's Microsoft, Apple, Google, Android, all those to deal with your security, right, and they have an issue and they get hacked or the bad guys get in there, and remember the adage here with the bad guys and the hackers is, unfortunately, we're always playing catch up. Well, there's changes coming, and that will help. And I'll explain why we're always playing catch up and what I feel is going to be the solution with the next generation of security software. So anyway, you need to know you have a problem, right? And you can't necessarily always rely on Microsoft or Apple or Google to be aware that there's been, that your system has been compromised, right? So that's why I say you have another party. So this brings us to antivirus software. Okay, so traditionally, antivirus software, and still the majority of the products, rely on the fact that they need to know about a virus or about a hacking attempt in order to respond to it. So this is what happens typically. Okay, Microsoft, Apple, or Google will release, the fact that there's a vulnerability. They'll release a patch for that vulnerability. Some people will update their stuff. Some people won't. The bad guys will understand, oh, hey, if they don't already know, They'll definitely understand at that point that there's a weakness. They will develop some code to, like a bot, like travel the internet and look for this problem, right? The antivirus companies will release a definition of the problem and what to look for, and they will push that out to their systems. So there's a constant battle, but you can see there's what's called a zero-day attack, where the bad guys have this window where they can infiltrate systems that aren't being looked after or aren't being managed, and those customers or those people are vulnerable, and the antivirus companies also don't respond right away because they need to develop the code and develop the technology and all that stuff. So, and then release a definition that you need to download to your device and make sure that you can be aware of this attempt and attacking attempt and deal with it. So that's what has always traditionally happened. Now, I have been using with my clients for the last couple of years a product called Webroot, and these guys have taken a different stance to security, and I really like it. So they don't rely on definitions, okay? They simply have in very, very simple terms, this is the philosophy. So it runs on your computer just like normal antivirus software, right? It doesn't take a lot of resources, okay? And it'll even work with other products. So typically how I set up my customers is that I enable any security that it comes with the operating system, because, that's a good thing. But then I also have Webroot there as a secondary process, right? It doesn't slow down the machine, but it is aware, okay, of the operations on the computer. And what it does is it says, okay, software running on this machine should have a defined, normal, acceptable way that it runs. And this is always the case, whenever you are being attacked or you're running something that's malicious on your machine, that process or that thing that's running there that shouldn't be there will always try and do stuff that it shouldn't, right? And that's where Webroot sticks in. It says, you know what? That software is behaving funny. It shouldn't be doing these things, and then it shuts it down. So, and boom, then you're done. So you're really protected from the zero-day attack because it doesn't have to know about an issue. It simply looks for bad behavior and deals with it that way. So I like that, right? So far, so good. That's where we're at. So that's my recommendation. That's what I do with our clients. And, have a look at Webroot. I strongly recommend that product. Okay. So the last issue here. Well, it's not really an issue. Okay. I think I've talked about this before on this show, but when you're a customer and you have an IT company providing service for you, the things that you need to know as a customer, and I'll deal with this more from a business perspective, but one thing, okay, you got to know your costs of downtime. You got to know what happens when things aren't working. What is the cost? Are you going to lose clients? Are you going to lose employees? How much of your salaries are being wasted by people that can't do anything because technology is not working? That is such a key thing, to know that number by the hour, by the day, by the week. Really, really need to know, because that frames a whole approach to how you need to be protected. Number two, okay, know what you can afford, right? It's very hard for us as IT service providers to provide a client with a solution if we have no idea what the budgetary restraints are. you know, and on top of that, we're doing work here, right? The clearer and more concise you are with your IT company about the needs of the business, right, or even in residential, your needs as a residential individual, the more efficient, or should be, at least in our case, it would be the case, the more efficient you will get a solution. But if you don't know what you want, right, or don't understand that you need to understand what you want, right, because this is very, very important. Technology solutions can be very, very expensive, right? And if you can't, if you don't advocate and say, okay, this is what we need, this is, or even have the discussion, right, to hammer out what the costs are, what the risks are, then you're not going to get the solution you need. It's just as simple as that. So, like I've said before on the show, the way we work with our customers is very much a partnership type arrangement. Okay. I rely on the customer for certain things, right? And that makes the service better, and vice versa, right? I educate and make recommendations, and we tell our customers, what their risks are. We hammer that out. We have those discussions, right? But at the end of the day, the customer has to say, yes, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to protect, right? So, and that's that. So anyway, we've gone over a little bit. I actually thought we'd have a little hard time doing this one, but because I wasn't sure what to talk about. But well, we went over. So anyway, that's it for another week. It's episode 37. We will see you guys all next week, and have a good long weekend, and do something nice with your fathers. It's Father's Day here in Canada. Yeah, we'll see you all next week. Have a good one. Safe computing. Bye.